Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
Is Matthew Tkachuk inching closer to being the first NHL player to pull a Happy Gilmore and take his skate off and actually stab someone with it?
I think he's liable to be stabbed by someone else. I think that's what's coming around here. And the funny part is, I actually don't think this was his worst offense ever. I don't even think this was an offense, really. I think it was just kind of like a really unfortunate situation. But you tell Paul Maurice that.
Oh, Paul Maurice is hearing none of it. Absolutely none of it. And I don't think he's going to come out of his little bubble on that one.
Feel good?
Not really.
Feel happy about that?
Not even a little.
Playoff hockey is back, and so is Brad's bullshit.
My bullshit never left. Get serious.
Yeah, that's true. As we're talking right now, the bullshit that is the qualifying round. No, I'm kidding. I'm happy hockey is back. Columbus and Toronto are playing, which is a sign that hockey has returned in its playoff form. I know, the league did its dance for a long time, but these are very much the playoffs, as is being evidenced by the playoff stats being recorded and the playoff atmosphere and everything else like that. And honestly, all pettiness aside, it's just a nice time to be a hockey fan.
I've watched 5 games in the last 30 hours.
Yeah, I've done a lot of driving the past couple of days. Went back to Windsor and obviously back here now, and listened to games the whole way down and the whole way back, and did not feel bad about not watching the games because I know that there are going to be like nonstop games from now until either the cup is awarded or COVID finally takes us all. So either way, I'll die happy.
Yeah, I had a 4-day weekend because I have a lot of vacation days to burn before they expire, and I'm coming up on my busy season, so I won't be able to use a ton in the fall and winter. So I just took a 4-day weekend. So I hauled ass on Thursday and Friday to get every bit of yard work and housework and errand done, so that literally Saturday, Sunday, my plans would exist of sitting on the couch and watching hockey and playing with the kids. That has been my life since noon yesterday.
Yeah, I did miss, I genuinely did miss you live tweeting games, and I didn't realize that until I saw a series of 6 reaction tweets that you put out. I'm like, oh, Brad's back. Brad's back and hockey's back. That's good. I
missed angry tweeting hockey games.
Is it nicer that it's not Detroit?
No, because these teams are supposed to be good.
No. Anyone who had a brain here would have expected that this wouldn't have been good hockey.
So, not even good hockey. It's the boneheaded coaching decisions that it makes me feel better about Blashill knowing there are coaches with great reputations on better teams that do just absolutely insane garbage. You're the Edmonton Oilers. You have a train wreck of a defense, so you're going to need solid goaltending. So instead of playing Mikko Koskinen and his .917 save percentage this year, you're going to start Mike Smith with his .902 save percentage this year. Okay, Ryan, you're more familiar with your own zone than I am. So I'll chalk that up to goaltending too. I don't back check, so I just... all that end of the ice is unfamiliar to me. Why do people think Mike Smith is still good when he hasn't been good for many years now?
They're taking experience a little too far here.
I mean, and a lot of people are saying, oh, well, you can't put that whole game on Mike Smith. Sure, 5 goals went in on him, but only one of them was really his fault, to which I would mostly agree. But that one was right after the Oilers took the lead, and it was so catastrophically bad. How does the team's morale not instantly deflate when your goalie literally gives the puck to the other team, and then it ends up going into his own net, off his own ass, on a shot from behind the goal line? no shit Edmonton had a letdown after that. And again, could you fault him on the other 4 goals? No. But the thing of being a really, really good NHL goalie is every once in a while you make a save that you're not supposed to. If Koskinen had just got one of those, like the high glove 1T or the Jonathan Toews blocker side tap, it's a 1-goal game. It's a 1-goal game and anything can happen. Instead, the Oilers get absolutely donkey kicked.
The general rule of thumb is that if you score 4 goals, you should be winning the game. And if you aren't winning the game, your goalie probably could have done more to help you. Whether all the goals are his fault or not, yeah, Mike Smith's on the line for this one. Although, you know who else is? Connor McDavid, because his knock-knock jokes aren't funny enough.
He only had 3 points, had 1 bad giveaway, and he's pretty boring. So, it's clearly his fault.
I hate engaging with the obvious like baity takes on hockey Twitter from people with almost universally stupid opinions and decision making. But the notion that Connor McDavid could at all be the problem is the most Toronto/Edmonton media stupidity that is only born of like the galaxy brain levels of this is a useless member of the hockey sphere that never offers anything other than bona fide bullshit. Like that was Phil Kessel hot dog level of stupid.
Yep, and I can't even. He's too boring. Yet Jonathan Toews and Sidney Crosby have won half the cups over the last decade, so I don't think that matters. But you know my favorite part of this all, and I know not a lot of people will be able to share this info, but I have a small glimpse into what Connor McDavid is like off camera, because I did spend an afternoon working with him at the NHLPA Rookie Showcase a bunch of years ago. Guess what? When the camera goes off, he's normal. He is shooting the shit with his friends. The group I was working with was McDavid, Fabry, Marner, and Strome. And do you know what they were acting like? Every other group of 18-year-old dudes on the planet. Being immature, being over-the-top excited, loud, rambunctious. There was a bubble hockey table in the room when on the downtime. I heard Connor McDavid drop several F-bombs and call Mitch Marner unspeakable things, which is normal. So guess what? If your take is McDavid lost him the game because he's boring, it's stupid in 2 ways. Congratulations! You're actually wrong, and you're also stupid. You should get an award for that, and the award is just a helmet that you have to wear in public so you don't hurt yourself.
And on that note, I realize we never introed ourselves. Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. I'm Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad, and I'm angry again. Hockey must be back.
Evan has defected to Papua New Guinea, where he's trying to start a revolution. I'm sure he'll be back for the midweek episode.
Ever since we went remote and Evan's been to most episodes, I miss trying to make up excuses for why he's not here.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Remember when it was like still pretty newer, the podcast, and in the description of the episodes we'd write like a different reason as to why one of us was and what someone actually said, did Ryan really go to Papua New Guinea? And I didn't. Unfortunately not, I didn't. Besides the qualifying round on this episode, we will of course be talking about our prospect profile, diving into some more specific plays that have been the topic du jour over the past weekend. And then just, whatever else comes up. I'm not sure if there's any Red Wings relevant stuff that's happened. Not really. That might be grinding to a halt if there was even anything coming out. So we might have to glimpse past that before heading into overtime. But at the very least, we have plenty of hockey to talk about. So let's actually talk about that Edmonton-Chicago series and use that to paint these whole play-ins with a broad brush. As a lot of people expected, underdogs have come out and taken advantage of the mass amount of variance in the opening games of these play-ins or the qualifying round, whatever you want to talk about. So Chicago, wow, just ran train on Edmonton for the better part of the game and then came out on top 6-4. Dominic Kubalik continuing his insane production from his rookie season well into the playoffs now. I think that's the most points from a rookie in their playoff debut.
Yes, his playoff debut is the 12th seed. Sorry. I'll stop making those jokes. I mean, he's unreal, and Chicago's in a really good spot to eventually get, rebuild properly and be good. And boy, could Lafreniere help that, but they're screwing that up, and that's fine with me. That game's not on Chicago, though. That game's on Edmonton imploding. You have Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Oscar Klefbom. You have no excuse. You should run train on Chicago 9 out of 10 times. And it's one game. The Oilers absolutely could still win the series. Although someone did bring up an interesting stat from the 80s when the NHL did employ a 5-game series for the first round for a bunch of years. The team that won game 1 won the series. I think it was 89% of the time, which made all these game 1s super important because no matter how good you are, there's no way around it. You have to win 3 of the next 4. Now, let's put this into perspective in 2 fronts. 1, the NHL might be the most random of all major sports in the world. There is more luck, there is more bounces, there is more variables that could swing a game either way. Let's not forget, when looking at like odds and stuff like that during the regular season, when the Detroit Red Wings, one of the worst teams of all time, were playing a top seed, the odds lines was usually like 40-60 or 35-65 on the extreme end. So basically, if the Red Wings played the Lightning 10 times, the odds state at worst they would win 3 of those 10. So it's not crazy to think a bad team could win 3 of those 5 because, teams go on 5-game losing streaks, so it's got to balance out somehow. Then you couple that with they had one warm-up game after a longer pause on hockey than you would get in a normal off-season, at least relative to where teams got bounced in the playoffs or not. This was going to be chaos. Both number 12 seeds won their first game. A couple other bottom seeds won their first game. In the round robin, I think for the top 4 teams, I think the lower seed won both games that I've completed so far. This is not surprising. Like, we made our jokes, like I know I said in the last episode, Pittsburgh in 2, but it's going to happen. It is absolutely going to happen. And if anybody goes, yeah, well, it's great entertainment. Well, why are you mad about it? Well, you're right. It's great entertainment. And from an entertainment standpoint, I am loving the hell out of what I've watched so far. It's unfair bullshit in regards to the draft lottery because right now we're looking at a pretty decent chance that, Edmonton and Pittsburgh are going to be in the running. Because again, the 89% odds, hard to believe both teams will overcome that. One of them probably will, but it's stupid, and I'm not going to harp on the draft lottery over and over again. I'm getting it out of the way now so I don't have to talk about it for the rest of the play-in round. And that garbage I was talking about before, about how that stupid draft lottery format will ruin, in a lot of ways, the viewing experience of this play-in round, is true. I couldn't bring myself to watch the first half of the Columbus-Toronto game before we started recording because I am angry no matter what happens with the Leafs. That's the team I hate the most, so naturally it would be super enjoyable to watch that series and cheer for Columbus. But now I can't. Yeah, but now I can't because if Toronto loses this series, cool, they might get Lafreniere, and I'm even more angry about that.
For me, how I feel about Toronto is I'm comfortable rooting for them to win because, you know what? A team that good losing in the qualifying round is just, that's too much a variance for me. Like, Leafs fans obviously would say, it's a toss-up. It's a 5-game series. And I think they'd be right to say it. As a petty person, I would rather have some hope instilled in them first before pulling the rug out from beneath them. And I want it to be through Boston.
Yeah, my perfect scenario is they advance and get crushed by Boston again in a 7-game series. That is ideal, but you can't bank on that, right? We don't know who's going to play who. We don't even know if it's in the realm of possibility they play Boston because we don't know what Boston's seed is and we don't know the 5 to 12 seeds. So
we all know We already know who's going to win, which is the loser of Pittsburgh Montreal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You just feel it in your bones, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm still pulling for like a Minnesota, an Arizona, a Nashville. Like, although Arizona did themselves no favors on that front today.
Yeah, strong start by Arizona, and like exactly the goalie situation that we were talking about. Arizona got some really strong goaltending, which was a continuation of their season, and Nashville's poor goaltending season continued with UC Saros having a bad outing. So it's not that's not looking good for Nashville, and especially like you and Evan mentioned last episode, that's not looking good for them having a good rest of their this core being the one to make a run for it. I would not be surprised to see that team being dismantled if they can't come back in this series.
It's funny. You look at how, I don't want to say inept their offense is, because that is selling them short. They're not bad, but you look at how like catastrophically average to mediocre their offense is, and then you look at the contract situation and realize, well, they can't do a goddamn thing about that. Duchesne's in long term, Johansson's in long term, Yarncrocs in long term, although it'd be very cheap. They're not going to let Philip Forsberg go. I think Arvidsson's long term. Like, this is it. This is what they got. They were hoping Saros was the answer in net. Well, not looking great so far. I mean, they did, I think, acquire Connor Ingram, if I'm not mistaken. So, hey, maybe that works out if they can move Rene somehow. I don't know. Probably to Detroit, honestly. But, but yeah.
Well, yeah, actually, that wouldn't be bad.
I don't think Rene's bad to the point where we're getting an asset to take him. I think from that front, Jake Allen makes a ton more sense. But
I can see Nashville, if they dismantle their team and are willing to part with... But say they're willing to part with one or two of their key defensive pieces, I could see them targeting Detroit for a high-end offensive piece.
We have high-end offensive pieces?
Yes.
We're trading Larkin or Mantha?
Well, I mean, that's who they'll ask for.
Yeah, because that's the end of the list. Zadina, I'll bet we'll get there, but I think we're even less likely to trade him. So,
yeah, you know what's funny? I just thought of this now. There's I did an interview, or like I repped us on a mock draft on a podcast that's coming up. We'll retweet it. It's a Devils podcast, and it was fun. It was from like hockey people from representing different teams. And I started giving a rundown on the Red Wings, and my mind did that stupid wandering thing, and I didn't try to I don't know. It wasn't my podcast, and I was drinking, so I was like, I'm not going to bother filtering this. And I was just kind of following the train of thought, and I was like, yeah, and Red Wings fans don't know, there's still so much uncertainty that they don't know what player is going to be part of the future. And, and then I start to name a player, and the first player that came to mind was Mantha. And so I just said Mantha. And I'm like, yeah, there's no guarantee that Mantha will be on this team when it's competitive again, of course. That's actually a pretty big risk 3 years from now, let's say. But I think that's hardly the biggest story that Red Wings fans are worrying about right now. But I went with it. I said it out loud, and I went with it in my head. I'm like, oh, well, that's going to sound really dumb when it's on the air.
Yeah, you're getting radioed.
Yeah, well. No, Nashville, and I don't want to write them off too soon. It's just one game. But like you said, winning 3 games is a lot easier when you start off with 1 under your belt. So they're going to have to find a way to both solve the other team's goalie and fix their own. And I would hate to have to do that on such a tight timeline. A 7-game series is one thing. If they lose one more, you're essentially out of time.
Yeah. Can we talk about a more exciting series?
Sure. What's the score of the Toronto-Columbus game? Still 0-0 at the end of the second.
Don't care. Oh, that plays well for Columbus.
It does.
For anybody who did not watch Game 1 of the Rangers and Hurricanes, you make damn sure you go out of your way to watch the rest of that series, because that was the best game so far this weekend by a lot.
Who was it that Justin Williams fought?
Ryan Strome. Not really sure how that started, but within the first 5 minutes of the game, there were 3 massive hits, a ridiculous goal, a couple great saves. They hate each other quick. Mark Stahl blew up Marty Necas. Someone on Carolina blew up I forget which Ranger, and then it just kept going back and forth, and it was just a fantastic game of two teams who play how I like them to play. It's amazing. Carolina, like, I like the Rangers, so I always find myself rooting for them. But Carolina, the way they built their team and the way they play, art. We are going to have a ridiculously strong blue line. We are building from the back end out. But we are also going to play very up-tempo, high-pace, fast hockey. Love it. They are the anti-Islanders. They are the anti-Predators, and I love them for it.
Yeah, well, you make fun of the Islanders, they're winning.
Oh, yeah, no, I've cursed them to win the Stanley Cup, and I apologize for this. Because I watched part of their game against Florida yesterday, and I watched most of their preseason game. They are the reincarnation of the 90s Devils, and you can't convince me otherwise. It is effective. I can't argue it. That's how Trotz gets it done. But they don't have an Ovechkin or a Backstrom or Kuznetsov to make up for it. They are a boring-ass team to watch play hockey. Holy Christ. They are what Jeff Blashill hopes the Red Wings to be, which is just ultra-low event, super conservative, super tight hockey, and I pray that is not what the Red Wings turn into. I mean, if we're winning cups, I won't complain. But yeah, God damn am I rooting against them.
You know what I've noticed is that no team has looked totally faultless, and that makes sense. You're watching teams that are either the lower seeded real playoff teams or teams that aren't really playoff teams. So you're not going to get, flawless. These teams are dialed in and they've spent their whole seasons preparing for this hockey.
Did you not just hear my spiel about Carolina, Ryan?
Like, for example, Pittsburgh-Montreal. I still think Pittsburgh was a stronger team that game. They
were out shooting them 2-1 at late in the second period at one point.
Montreal took advantage of their opportunities, and Montreal, had as good of a game as they could have expected from themselves, and it came through. And that's exactly why teams like Montreal have a chance. And that leads to fun hockey right now. So it's not always fun hockey. Sometimes it's just like, holy crap, can you guys put a pass on the guy's stick? Like, can you hit the tape once? But a lot of the times it's like good back and forth hockey. You don't have, Pittsburgh's a way better team than Montreal. But if you're a neutral observer, you like the fact that the game can remain close. I think things are going to level out a little bit, and you'll see dominant teams continue to dominate or dominate more effectively and over the course of 60 minutes as you get towards the end of these series. But for the whole qualifying round, I think is going to be good fun, to say the least. I'm really curious to see how Vancouver, Minnesota goes tonight, because I think if Minnesota comes out and wins, that could maybe flip the script on what a lot of people expect. And then, of course, the results of the Leafs and Blue Jackets tonight.
Well, Vancouver will be a case study in the youth movement. I never thought I'd see the day, too, talking about Pittsburgh-Montreal, where Claude Julien would be the one just embracing the rookies. I'm pretty sure by the end of the game, Nick Suzuki led all Montreal forwards in ice time. At least he was a good chunk of the way through the third period. And I can't lie. I'm the type of person, I'm petty to the point where while I was watching Nick Suzuki play the game of his life in the playoffs against the Penguins, leading the Canadians in forwards and ice times, and having a key goal, and I'm on Elite Prospects looking at Michael Rasmussen's stats.
I knew you would be. I was watching the game and I knew you would be.
I will never forgive Tyler Wright for that draft. Not just Rasmussen, he'll be fine, but like that whole draft. Oh my God. But that will go down in my mind, like when we look back at the rebuild whenever it's over, as the draft that delayed everything.
Yeah. I mean, if you have to pick a draft that delayed everything.
They had, 11, 12 picks, and they hit on none of them? None? There's a reasonable chance right now Gustav Lindstrom is the best player they picked in that draft, and he probably still should have went like 15 picks lower than he did. And he was in the second round. Like, they just whiffed on every pick. Rasmussen will be an NHL player, and he'll be fine. But they could have had Marty Necas. They could have had Nick Suzuki. They could have had Eric Brandstrom. Like, Jesus. And normally it's revisionist history, right? Because we can still sit here and go, oh yeah, we all universally would have picked Philip Zadina and not Quinn Hughes. And yeah, it sucks we didn't get Quinn Hughes, but it was the right call at the time. Red Wings fans, by and large, hated that pick when we made it. With, again, all due respect to Michael Rasmussen. I like him. Yeah. He's a good player. He'll be an effective third liner and a key power play guy. don't get me wrong. Do not hate Michael Rasmussen. I hate the pick.
You know how that was a bad pick? And that everybody, like a lot of people didn't like it, was that was still at the time where we weren't not speaking out like our opinions, but we still had to qualify them heavily because a lot of people just still weren't willing to hear anything negative about the Red Wings. It was towards the later end of that, and I remember that post-draft being one of the first times where we really unloaded on some of the stupid decisions that Red Wings management was making. I remember us sitting down going, all right, that's it. That's like, let's do this. We don't there's no other way to say it other than this just wasn't the right pick in our opinion. And again, not a slight on, nobody wants to see Michael Rasmussen do bad. And I still think he could be an effective player on this team, but it's just hard to watch everything that Brad just mentioned.
Again, cause I'm this petty, I went back and I looked where I had Michael Rasmussen ranked in that draft.
Where?
Take a guess.
15.
Nope.
25.
Nope. Low. Well, better than 25.
18.
Nope.
19.
Nope.
21.
Nope.
23.
Nope.
24.
22. You skipped over it.
Oh.
I'm like, oh no, we picked him at 9.
Yeah.
And again, fine player, but still. Oh man, I am upset.
It's not to say that picking a player that's not one of the consensus ranked picks at that spot is always a bad decision. And that I don't think that was the biggest thing that we harped on. I think what we mentioned was it was a way off the board pick, and you need to have a pretty good reason to do that because it's not like the consensus picks are uninformed. And a lot of the reasoning put forward was how impressive he was in his interviews and how strong his attitude was. And I just remember thinking, holy shit, man, attitude doesn't score goals. Like, he might work really hard, but so does Luke Glendening, you know? There's plenty of hard workers on this team. And it's, again, Rasmussen has a lot of skill. Like, he definitely has a lot of skill, and I'm not saying he's going to be a fourth liner, but that was the part that irked me a lot, was just a lot of talk about character. I'm like, you're picking 9th overall at the beginning of your rebuild, which is already 3 years behind. We cannot be picking for character with talent on the board. Admittedly, my preferred pick at that spot was Gabe Vilardi. So.
And he at least looks like he could be decent still.
Avoiding the fact that I just had to hold it a hiccup and nearly died. Gabe Vilardi, and his back was injured until 6 months ago. Has had a great, little bit of time back since he really hit his stride just this past year, I believe. But that was one of those anomalous picks where it looked like he might not even play. So it's a crapshoot, and you can never really get angry at the picks until you know some things for sure. But you can have your opinions, and you can weight them certain ways. And sorry, that was a poor way to phrase it. You can absolutely get angry at the picks if they are just off the board for all the wrong reasons. But you'll never know for sure until a little while down the road. But yeah, no one can really be surprised to see a lot of the players ahead of Rasmussen performing how they are.
And to understand, too, that when you get angry and you sound off, sometimes you'll look back at it in a few years and go, wow, I was very wrong. And other times you'll be like, I nailed it. Because we were angry about the Rasmussen pick, and based on how Nick Suzuki and other guys behind him are playing, we were right. But we were dead wrong about when we got very angry about the Red Wings picking Mo Seider. So it can go both ways. But we won't point out the times we're wrong. No.
Yeah.
We're only going to point it out when, oh, yeah, we nailed that one.
Okay, so of the first round or first game upsets, so that's Chicago over the Oilers, Montreal over Pittsburgh, Arizona over Nashville. Which one do you think has the most potential to shine through and have it actually be a full series upset?
Well, I'm not going to say Montreal because Pittsburgh was the better team. Pittsburgh was clearly the better team that one. Edmonton wasn't. Chicago was the better team that game. And I would argue Arizona was the better team as well. So I have more faith in Arizona to keep it going. But Edmonton looks so fucking atrocious defensively. It's hard to not pick that one. And by the way, you want to know one way to ease your mind about a trade you didn't like at the begin with? When he plays like 3.5 minutes or whatever it was that game. Because listen, Tippett, I know Athanasiou might not be your favorite, but he sure as hell is better than some of the guys you were deploying out there. When you're down 4 goals, maybe play the offensive guys. Maybe just a thought.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think I agree with you that Nashville has too much to turn around. I think Arizona has the strongest chance. You never want, like, my first thought watching Connor McDavid in the preseason was, and I think I said this on air, like, this guy might just drag them all the way to the Cup Finals. But he just needs the littlest amount of support, and I think it exists on the team. I don't think they have to be as bad as they were between the pipes and on the blue line as they were that game, but it's hardly a sure thing.
Experience is the most overrated thing in hockey. Mikko Koskinen better start next game, and I am super curious to see if they have another defensive train wreck like that, even if they win the game. But they're porous defensively, so let's say they win one like 6-4 or something like that. Man, they got to give Bouchard or Broberg or somebody a shot. Like because their defense should be good though. They have Clefbaum, who's good. Ethan Bear had a great year. Like they're not completely devoid back there like they have been for years, and they have depth and options. I don't even think Caleb Jones played last game, and if he did, I didn't hear his name at all, so he wasn't getting a ton of ice time. Like that first game was on Tippett. They were sloppy and disorganized, which most teams are going to be, but you got to at least keep it within reason, so it's still on the coach. And Mike Smith should have never started. That's people blaming McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins and all those. It's stupid. McDavid had 3 points. Draisaitl had what, 2? Like, yeah, no. If I'm a forward on a team and I get 3 points and my team loses, I'm walking into that room pissed and yelling at everybody else.
I believe that experience is overrated in general and how it's handled within the NHL. I believe it is an underrated asset in the playoffs for every position except for goalie. I think in the playoffs, you subscribe to the notion that you should probably be doing all season with your goaltenders, which is ride the hot hand, especially in the playoffs because every game counts and you do not have a lot of time to make up for mistakes, especially in a 5-game series. So like you said, I don't really get the Mike Smith over the Koskinen pick and net. Koskinen had a better time over the course of the season. I get the idea of what Tippett might have been going for, but it very clearly backfired, and I don't think they have any choice but to start Koskinen this next game. Not to say Koskinen's going to be a guaranteed thing, but it's a better shot at least.
I'm no math major, but 917 is better than 902.
Yeah, that's true. We are not going to harp too much on just the one loss. Excuse me. We're not going to harp too much on just the one loss of these higher seeded teams, but let's just pretend for a second that they are bumped out. Edmonton, Pittsburgh, Nashville. I think obviously Nashville is the one that you would be the least mad at winning Lafreniere.
Yes, comfortably. No. Edmonton would be the team I would be least mad at because I like the Oilers. I like watching fun hockey, and Draisaitl, McDavid, Lafreniere would be super fun. And I would like a good team, a really, really good team, not named Pittsburgh or Toronto, to get him so the NHL realizes how stupid they are. I want this to blow up in their face in spectacular fashion.
Yeah, I want that same thing to happen, and I don't want it to be a Chicago, and I don't want it to be a team that's had a lot of luck, but it's just lower seeded right now. That way the NHL can't say, well, look, it's a bad team, and now they get to turn it around. No, I don't want any of that crap.
So here's the thing. This is where you got to understand the difference between upset and angry. I would be upset if the Chicago Blackhawks got Lafreniere, because I don't like the Hawks. I would not be angry because it is entirely justifiable that a bottom 9 team in the league wins the draft lottery.
Absolutely.
So yeah, whatever. I could, same with Montreal. I'd be upset, not angry. If Pittsburgh, Toronto, any of those teams get it, I'm angry because it's stupid and never should have happened.
So Edmonton is the perfect mixture of angry and being the right kind of poison to hopefully kill this stupidity once and for all.
Exactly.
You know, the system is bad when I'm watching hockey with my dad at home this weekend, and my dad doesn't get too caught up in prospects or anything. He understands who they are, and like he'll follow them and he'll watch the World Juniors, for example, but he doesn't really like when we were mad at the Rasmussen pick, he would never have been like, oh, rah, rah, rah. He would have been like, well, I mean, that pick's a pick. And the first thing he said when the Montreal-Pittsburgh game was on and they started referencing like what if Pittsburgh might win the lottery, all I hear is, how the hell didn't they give that pick to Detroit? I don't understand. This team had like 17 wins and they are not getting that pick. He's like, how the hell? When Billy's saying that, you know you've messed up big.
The galaxy brain doesn't always work.
No. All right. Speaking of prospects, prospect profile for today. Brad, it is going to be Brayden Schneider. You can take us away.
Imagine Jake Sanderson, but more boring. I present to you Brayden Schneider. Okay, I'm kidding. I'm selling the guy short. Brayden Schneider is basically at this point viewed as how Moritz Seider was viewed last year at this point. Good skater, good physical game, really responsible, really good defensively, almost devoid of offensive upside. Not that he's incompetent, but like even at the WHL level, just enough to get by. Good first pass, doesn't bring anything dynamic to his game. I mean, we were all wrong about Moritz Seider, and he did have an offensive game, but he also was playing in a German men's league like 8 minutes a night, so he didn't get to showcase it. Brayden Schneider is a top defenseman in a junior league, so he should have showcased it at this point. So I'm not betting on the Mo Seider surprise when he gets picked. Now, if you talk to most people, he's a mid to late first round pick. I personally have him in my second round, but like when we had Max and Prashanth on here for the mock draft, I think it was Max picked him. It's like, I think he's going to play. I think his defensive game and his skating and physical game are good enough that it will get him a regular job in the NHL. He will be a air quote safe pick, I think. I think that will be as a number 5-6 defenseman, and I don't think he's going to play any sort of critical role on the team he plays because although his defensive game is great, I don't think it's like elite to the point where he's going to play on the top pairing just to shut guys down. Do not see that happening. So if dried buttered toast was a hockey player, it would be Brayden Schneider.
Brayden Schneider is what I fear Jake Sanderson would be if Detroit picked him. And it's not meant to be a slight on Brayden Schneider, because if Detroit ended up getting this guy in the second round, I wouldn't be upset. I'd say, wow, they're filling out their defensive depth. Here's a guy who could turn into a reliable defender. Like you said, good in his own zone. I don't think he's completely decrepit offensively. Like you mentioned, he's got a good first pass. He's smart with where he moves the puck. He can move his feet. It's not a lot of offensive prowess, but he's not exactly going to hold the game back. He can be a part of the play moving forward. He just won't drive it. And that's okay. You're looking for a defender who's not like your number one defenseman, or even if this guy's in the second pairing, that's fine. If he's extremely reliable in his own zone, he can eat some minutes. Not everybody's going to be a superhero offensively from the blue line. It's not going to always be his role. I think a more boring Jake Sanderson's a good way to put it. And I also think there's a chance Sanderson is like, there's a little bit of inflation of his offensive abilities going on. I don't necessarily believe that. It's always such a dicey game when you evaluate a prospect's offensive abilities and you're like, yeah, well, it's not terribly strong. He's not, completely deficient, but it's not always there. And then all of a sudden you start picking and highlighting and cherry picking his really strong offensive plays whenever they happen. And you're like, oh, maybe this is like an untapped wealth of offensive potential from this defenseman. And we can rely on him to be something better. I'll admit it. I still have a requisite amount of anxiety about Moritz Seider's offensive ability. I'm worried it'll plateau well before wherever his defensive ability spikes to, and that he'll never be a good offensive contributor. I wouldn't bank on it, but I don't think it's completely out of the question. And so whenever you draft guys like Seider or Schneider or Jake Sanderson, you have to really be sure about what you think is still left in the tank for them to develop and what you think is maybe being a little bit overstated. I know I've turned this into a Jake Sanderson prospect profile rather than Brayden Schneider, but it's honestly a compliment to Schneider because I think he's a really, really apt defensive defenseman. I think his toolkit for his size is going to be attractive for a lot of coaches and a lot of teams. If this is a guy that Detroit takes in the second round, I'm very happy. Maybe not with pick 32.
No, not with 32, and there is zero chance he is getting all the way to their second round pick. So in my mind, I don't think Brayden Schneider is an option for the Red Wings. I don't even think he's going to be there at 32 because there are teams that fall in love with guys like this all the time. I could legitimately see him going as high as 15. But again, I don't think it would be the right call. And again, some people will point to, well, yeah, he had 42 points in 60 games in the WHL. That's not bad. He missed out being eligible for last year's draft by 5 days. He is one of the oldest players in this draft. He is an overager who's played 3 full WHL seasons, and he's basically a 0.6 point something per point per game player in a junior league. The offense will not come at the NHL level. History shows that defensemen who in their 18-year-old season in juniors don't even creep up near a point per game, they do not turn into point producers in the NHL. They just don't.
Yeah, it's like Brad said, teams fall in love with this kind of player all the time. I mean, one went 6 overall last year, so I agree. He's not going to make it to 32. And honestly, for a team that has a lot of other things figured out and they're picking anywhere from 15 to 31 and they just need to round out their defense, wouldn't be a bad pick. You know who would love a Brayden Schneider? Toronto Maple Leafs.
Right? And they could use it with their first. Aww.
Yeah.
Suck it, nerds.
Oh, they're losing.
Are they?
Yeah, 1-0.
Hell yeah. Let me go to Twitter and watch everybody melt down.
Yeah, Brayden Schneider, I actually think he's going to be one of the, if he's not already, new hot things in the world of let's pump up defensemen's consensus rankings, because teams need defensemen and they will try to make, put lipstick on a pig. It's not an apt comparison because he's a very good defenseman. He'll be a good pick, but again, defensemen tend to be inflated. Who scored? Cam Atkinson.
That was not a good goal. Freddie's going to want that one back.
And I'm sure the Leafs fans will be very forgiving.
Yeah.
We forgot to talk about the Tkachuk incident.
We kind of did, but not really. How deep could we go into this? It wasn't malicious. Matthew Tkachuk does malicious things. This wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
Who was it? There was a panelist on, I forget what network, was talking about it. A former NHL player is like, there's not enough. There's a handful of players on the planet who are even good enough skaters to be able to do that on purpose, let alone. And Matthew Tkachuk is not one of them. Skating is not his forte. It sucks. It happened. Was it the worst argument you could have here towards Matthew Tkachuk is it was careless and reckless. Should he have even taken that line? Yeah, you could argue no. It was maybe a bad line, bad play, because you could see from a mile away what Scheifele was going to do. But that's careless isn't the same as malicious.
Yeah, that whole skipping off the ice thing is something where the moment it happened, I went, oh, I know exactly what that's like. And I don't think Tkachuk was out there trying to cut anyone with his blade. The skate bouncing and skipping off the ice is a very real thing, especially when you are taking a strange line like what Brad mentioned. It sucks to see. Obviously, you never want to see anyone hurt like that, especially you don't want to see a team lose a key player like Scheifele. But teams will have an endless amount of reasons to be mad at Matthew Tkachuk, like very justifiably. I just don't think that's one of them. I mean, I'm not going to tell Winnipeg fans to not be mad that the play happened. Of course, if I was a Red Wings fan, I'd be livid. You can argue the whole Mantha Muzzin thing was within the same vein of like that wasn't the intended outcome, and I'm still angry about it. So if you're a Jets fan, of course, be pissed off about this, but I don't think Tkachuk did it on purpose. He answered the bell with Wheeler afterwards as well. So Winnipeg's got to find a way to get through it and make it through the series, even after losing both Scheifele and Laine. All right, Brad, anything else before we get into overtime?
Nothing that I can think of.
All right. We are going to start with the Ovechkin Stan Club. Sorry, overtime. We're going to start out with Patreon, where our patrons get their comments read out on air as our way of saying thank you for supporting the show. Ovechkin Stan Club says, "It's sad since I'm a huge Caps fan. I was so excited when Mike Green signed here. He was one of the better defenders for a few years. Who was another good signing you thought who were kind of a letdown? Keep calm and witness greatness."
Good.
I never liked the Darian Hatcher signing, and obviously that was a letdown for different reasons, but I know that was a big letdown for the Red Wings way back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we hated the Stephen Weiss signing when it was made. And
I wanted more from Weiss.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I want more from Nielsen.
I know, and I don't think we loved either of those signings when it happens, but I don't think we were also kicking up a stink about either of them, and both have turned out to be far worse than we had thought.
Quaz says, "Oh boy, is Montreal going to do the thing? I really don't know what to feel if they do. Oh god, and Chicago won? Chaos. Unpopular opinion, I like the Flames unis with the black logo more than the classic one."
No.
I can see getting behind the black logo, but just the piping and all the black outlines. Ugh. Kyle Sanders says, "Hello, it is I, here to talk about all things. First, I'm a little upset that Red Bull went for the pit stop instead of going for the gusto. It's an understandable decision, but it still breaks my heart. Also, the perpetual cock cheese that is the Hulkenberg saga. Hopefully, he'll be able to pull some things together for next weekend. Moving on to other developments. Drive on down that field. Men of the scarlet and the gray. Ugh, jeez. Don't let them through that line. We've got to win this game today. Come on, Ohio. Smash through to victory. We cheer you as we go. Our honor defend. We will fight to the end for Ohio." Yuck. I'm going to go take a shower after singing what I presume to be the Ohio State fight song. Yuck. Joe Delia says, "Sup guys, I'm on this weekend crew for my job and I was super pumped all day for hockey. Got home at 11 p.m. just in time for the Jets-Flames game. Turned on the game and the first words I heard Pierre Maguire say is juicy. Insert SpongeBob I'm going to head out meme. I turned it off and went to bed."
That's the right call.
That's Pierre. Alex Ott says, "Of the top-end defensemen that are going to be available during next year's draft, which one are you most excited about? Power, Lambos, Clark, Hughes? I feel like the Wings have a better chance of picking an impact defenseman in next year's draft rather than trying to get one in this year's. I personally think that Power is going to be the sickest of the group, but Brad, please tell me why I'm wrong. Thanks for the pods, boys. Stay safe."
I don't know. I was going to say Power or Lambos, honestly, so I can't really argue with you there.
Yeah, I'm happy with all of them. I worry about Hughes maybe riding on the name value train a little bit there. Every set of siblings always says that the younger one or the next one up is the best one of all of them. It's a pretty common thing. They want their siblings to be drafted as high as possible. I'm big, same Power and Lambos. I don't pretend to know certainly this far out. I have not spent nearly as much time on next season's draft class as I would have by now because this year's draft hasn't happened yet. But I agree. I think with the forward talent available this year and the presumable defensive talent available next year, I wouldn't want to see Detroit skip over that talent and try to take a defenseman this time. C-Nod says, "Hockey is back. Also, we're seeing in real time the Penguins getting Alexei. God damn it. Also, how well coached are the Islanders? They play smart and pass well and never look flustered in the third with only 5 defensemen."
They're so well coached, I actually hate it.
It's what Trotz gets out of that team is insane because I don't think they're a bad team, but you really do have to squeeze the juice for all it's worth. And he's done that for 2 seasons now with the Islanders. So good for him. I think that's an extremely difficult thing to do. Evan Beckner says, "The best thing I've noticed about the Hub Arena so far is the new camera angles they're experimenting with that we don't usually see. Seems to be a lot more direct above angles, and the wired cameras are great too. Would love to see this kept once normal play resumes." I really like the new camera angles. I don't think you'll see too much of it while normal play resumes because it probably impedes a lot of vision. That said, that was one of the first things I noticed. Even if you don't like all the angles, I think it's you might as well be doing something. And the NHL, I think, has done a good job of saying, oh, well, we can't have normal games, so let's at least make it interesting for people. Joseph Fournier says, hey there, fellas. I'm glad the NHL is back, and it looks like they did it the right way. But these guys are rusty. The Flyers-Bruins tilt was the only good game I've seen. Kevin Hayes looks solid out there. Do you have any idea how bad the rest of the league needs to be playing in order for me to say that? I thought Dave Tippett was a great coach, but not anymore. He just deployed a defense-first traps with young, obedient teams, but has no idea what he's doing with the skilled Oilers lineup, leaving Mike Smith in for the second period, Athanasiou on the fourth line. Gotta hand it to the league for giving Matt Dumba and the Hockey Diversity Alliance a voice at the front of these games. Glad to see the league finally being proactive on anti-racism. Slashed on the Achilles on a sneaky, dirty play by Matthew Tkachuk. Slap a Stay Fresh cheese bag on it. It should help ease the pain. So should inevitably drafting Lafreniere. Stay Fresh cheese bags. Yeah. Tippett's benefit of the doubt says Tippett might just need another game, but like he mentioned, there's a lot of individual decisions in there where you're like, ooh, wow, Ken Holland really is your GM, huh?
Yeah, I mean, God, he made a lot of old school decisions that, anybody with a brain can go, yeah, that's not a good way to start. And then it was not a good way to start.
2 out of 5 stars says, good day, Dud Duds. The hockey, it is back. Unfortunately, that also means pre-game national anthems are back, which is total nonsense at the best of times, let alone in empty arenas. I don't get it. Now pause for the outrage from the puritanical patriots because I'm a special song. Heck off national anthems. I was forced to agree with Cop Guy online yesterday, and it honestly sucked. Prick Guy, why do you hate the Flash older Panthers jersey? Were you attacked by a Panther, or do you need to update the prescription on your glasses? It was, however, thankfully balanced out by #Our Islanders doing the thing and getting that W, which angered Cop Guy. It's just the logo. The logo for me doesn't do it. It's not a sports logo. Anyways, I also think the jersey itself isn't objectively nice at all. I think you're just nostalgic for that era of jerseys. Have you chosen any teams to bandwagon yet, or are we waiting until the actual playoffs begin?
Well, I always bandwagon Vegas, and since they're in the actual playoffs, that'll be fine with me, honestly.
Yeah, I might wait till the actual playoffs begin. There's just 24 teams in right now, so that's too many teams that I'd be comfortable rooting for. Jersey time, Thrashers jerseys. Rank them. Stay Fresh cheese bags. Oh, wow.
Thrashers, their best 2 were their original 2, and then the baby blue one, and then the stupid uterus monstrosity that they tried to employ after that.
I forgot.
Oh, and that stupid one where they just wrote, was it Atlanta or Thrashers, and with the number under. Every team that did that,
I hated it.
I hate it. They still do it in the NCAA religiously. I hate it. I hate it so much.
Reebok unleashed that onto us. I'm trying to find the different. Yeah, the one shoulder is by far my favorite one. I liked their uterus one. I thought that one was kind of cool with the bird. And then whatever other order you want, and then the Thrashers word mark, by far the worst. All right, we have time for some Reddit questions here. All I see is Gaines says normal AHL season or no. From what I heard, the AHL doesn't really make ends meet without ticket sales. Shortened season, canceled season. I don't know. I don't want to presume to know too much about how the AHL operates. I believe that they need people in the seats to make money. Will they be subsidized a little bit by the NHL? Will they run a loss for a year? I don't know. Can they afford to not play? Will the NHL teams let that happen?
They will have to be heavily propped up by the NHL because, they can't not have an AHL. Teams need their prospects playing somewhere, and they need emergency players. Like, you're not going to carry a roster of 30 players around for an entire season on the off chance guys get injured, right? So I don't see a reality where they don't have an AHL season. Whether that lines up exactly with the NHL, I don't know. Can't say. I wouldn't be surprised if the AHL started first, truthfully.
I view December right now as ambitious. I don't know. There's already things have hardly calmed down, and we haven't even reached flu season yet. So I think that's a placeholder date until things get pushed away. And I think the NHL season is under similar threat unless they find some kind of expanded bubble solution again. I just don't know that is going to happen how they want it to. I don't know. I'm not too optimistic about the AHL season. Some kind of solution is going to be found. A lot can change between now and then, but a lot has to change. What about Matthias Brume? He says, I'll help you out. Matthias Brume. Yeah. Will he make the Wings out of camp back to Sweden? Or maybe the Griffins, although it might not be an option. Keep it up and I might have to patronize your asses. Thanks.
I would like to see him in Detroit because, again, it goes back to the old saying, I'd rather the Red Wings start playing young players who might be bad instead of old players we know are bad, but I'm not optimistic. I very much get the Griffins vibe on this one.
Meister Brow says, have you discussed various cap trade scenarios yet? Yep, and we will continue to. I know we have gotten away from that the past couple episodes. Goes on to say there are some interesting possibilities that have been mentioned on the sub to fill their need and goal. For example, Jake Allen, Thatcher Demko, but I have no idea what the cost would realistically be. Allen, they might be able to get something in exchange for taking on his contract. Demko would have to be the reward for taking on it, like a Louis Eriksson type contract.
Yes.
Thoughts on re-signing Bowie and other on-the-fence RFAs? And so pretty much anyone besides Mantha, Bertuzzi, Fabry.
I mean, they're probably going to re-sign a good chunk of them because you need bodies. We can't just sit here and assume half of the Griffins are going to come up next year. We're going to need Bowie and Biega to play minutes because they just don't have six defensemen worthy of playing that consistently. And that is not even factoring in injuries at all. If you sign a Bowie or a Biega or a Ernie and you end up sending them to Grand Rapids, oh well. They're making close to league minimum anyway, so it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, so if you weren't a fan of a lot of these guys, pick all the ones who you would resign and then probably add 3 more just for the reason of you need warm bodies. Also, it's going to be harder to find those, well, maybe it won't be harder to find the league minimum players, but in a weird season, you're going to want as little movement as possible. It's not like any of these guys coming in their place, unless they're holding back a prospect, no one that's going to come in their place is going to shatter the world. So if you want to give Perlini another chance and see if he can't tap into his goal scoring, yeah, absolutely do it. If you want to keep Adam Ernie because he was effective defensively, absolutely do it. If you want to keep Madison Bowie and then, play him as a forward, absolutely do it. How do I feel? I don't feel strongly about Bowie, but I also recognize what he contributed offensively, so I wouldn't be mad. That's pretty much where I land on it. I won't listen to any contention that he's a good defender, though. He's just blatantly not. Wade Baca says, OG listener here. I wanted to ask a question that would harken back to those carefree halcyon days of yore. So here we go. What are Mitch Callahan's chances of making the team next year? To me, it seemed like he provided needed spark to our bottom six, and his shot blocking ability is unparalleled. Oh man, those were the days, huh? The Mitch Callahan days.
Oh, am I glad that we were right about him when everybody's like, oh, he's the second coming. And we're like, guys, chill. He might not actually be that good just because he's good in Grand Rapids. And here we are. How many years later?
Russell 18 says, as we know, the lotteries have not been kind to us. If you could change one, not this year's, lottery in history and have us remain in our original spot instead of dropping, which year would you choose and who would you take? 4th in 2018-2019, 5th in 17-18, or 6th in 16-17?
Okay, so 6th and 16-17 would have got us
Cody
probably
Glass.
At best Cody Glass. 17-18 was what, 5th?
Yeah, they would have taken Zadina anyways.
We would have taken Zadina anyway, so that doesn't matter at all. And then it would have been 4th last year.
Yeah. I go last year.
Which would have landed us... who would have still been available? So, if
Turcotte would have been available?
Yeah. Oh, no, last year for sure. Byram.
Yeah.
God.
I was going to say Byram and Turcotte.
That's the answer. I would hear an argument for Cody Glass, but I think Byram would have been the right call. A top player at a position in need.
Would you take Byram over Turcotte?
Yes. Turcotte didn't have a poor year, but he didn't have a year that would scream 5th overall pick.
Yarvik7 says, no question to ask. Just want to say thanks for keeping me sane during the great hockey drought of 2020. Hockey's back, but I can't wait till our Wings get back in action in 5 months. Scooter O'Malley says, what do you guys think of these extra high camera angles that we're getting? Do other markets get them every once in a while, or is this just a special situation since they don't have to worry about blocking fans? I like it. Gives me a better sense of just how fast the game is while watching on TV. Love the pod. You hit the nail on the head. It is because they have more license to do these things because there's no fans to worry about impeding their vision. And also they had to put some money into making the presentation a little better because shit's weird right now. JF Stomper says, so with no Detroit playing, who are you cheering for? Certain team or maybe one player you like that deserves the cup? Honestly, I like rooting for McDavid, truly.
Oh, are we picking a player?
Yeah, pick a player.
Henrik Lundqvist.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's not even a question in my mind. It's Henrik Lundqvist.
I'll rattle off teams right now who I would be happy to see them move on. Edmonton, Nashville, Arizona, Carolina, the Rangers, Vancouver, Minnesota, Winnipeg, Columbus. All of those teams, I'd say, yeah, hell yeah, good for you. And some of them are in the same series.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, Henrik Lundqvist is a great answer to that one. All right, we have time for a couple hashtag AskWWPs. So we will go to Intent to Deceive says if Yzerman decided he needed to trade one of his core, Larkin, Mantha, Bertuzzi, or Hronek, for example, which one would you trade and why?
Probably Bertuzzi because his trade value's probably viewed higher than what he's actually worth as a player. Larkin and Mantha you can't get rid of because there's just nobody else in the system who will bring what they bring offensively. Zadina maybe. I think Bertuzzi's probably the most replaceable because not that it's likely and I don't think it'll happen, but you could make an argument that if everything goes right, Rasmussen or Master Simoni could replace what he does in a way. I'm not saying as well as Bertuzzi does, but you could.
In the interest of reducing the impact of losing that player, yeah, Bertuzzi is the answer. If you want like a hot take that says this would be the best long-term for the team, you might be able to, provided nobody's willing to overpay for Bertuzzi, you might be able to flip Mantha into something extremely impactful. You would have to be certain because like Brad said, that is almost an irreplaceable level of talent in terms of you're not going to get someone of Mantha's quality in free agency without spending a fortune or having to give up a lot in a trade. But if you flip him for the right assets, it could end up being short-term pain, long-term gain. So very few GMs I would trust to do that. Steve Yzerman's one of them.
Yes.
All right. With that, Brad and I have to be off to mourn Evan's departure from this city. He's just at a cottage. That's all that happened. So we're going to wrap up this episode of the Winged Wheel podcast. We'd like to thank everyone for supporting the show. If you made it this far listening, thank you. For all of our patrons, thank you. Our name level sponsors of the Winged Wheel podcast, the septic tank of that bitch, Carol Baskins, Arjun Shanker, Greach, Ovechkin Stan Club, Brad Smith, Andrew Bohan, Scott Martin, Jacob Turner, Matt McKay, Brandon M., Matthew M. Rice, Luke Johnson, Kalen Wood, Hassam Al-Qassem, Charlie Elkins, Hannah Lee, Trevor Pevavar, Chris Ripley, Alex Ott, Ashley Van Conant, Chris Frank, Connor Leighton, Matthew Keeler, Simon Anderson, Antonio Gracias, John Evans, Quaz, and Stan Olsen. Thank you all. we will see you midweek.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockey Town Evan.